Okay, first of all, what I want to talk about before I talk about the presentation, it's the importance of understanding the question. When you say women in architecture, and specifically the Arab woman in architecture, there's almost a question mark at the end of this question. And where are the Arab women in architecture? But interestingly enough, this is an issue that's global. This is a global question. It's not a question that's just in the Arab world. And what we need to understand that the inclusion of women in architecture has been from the very beginning. They've been directly involved in design and the building of our cities, directly and indirectly for centuries, actually. So it's not a phenomenon of the 21st century, and specifically the last 5 or 6 decades, as people would think. For example, as we all know, in every civilization, women have been behind a lot of interesting moments in history which have impacted on society. If we look and focus on Islamic civilization, for centuries, women have been in positions of influence and have actually inspired great projects and have been behind and driving forces behind many different projects, including civic buildings, schools, residential palaces, gardens for the public. Women's interest and love and passion for the humans, for the human being, for the society, for their families, gives them a very personal perspective into their environment. And based on this, you will see that it's a very natural profession for a woman to go into architecture or any related field that's related to her environment. And I would like to say something. It's really important because I found a lot of questions from young women entering the field when I go and I lecture at various different universities. They always ask me, you know, how did you do it? How were you successful? How were you able to establish yourself? And the answer to that, it's a journey, and it's a 30-year journey so far. Actually, no, it's longer than that because it starts from when I was a very young girl, and the influences that influenced me as I was growing up. And I think my family had a major influence on me there, but I'll come to that. So the process of becoming an architect, regardless of whether you're male or female, it's a calling. Architecture, anything related to designing our environment, it's a calling. And if you don't have that inside you, you're not going to be true. You're not going to be honest about what you're doing. And that's why I've said this is a life of purpose. A life of purpose is when you know that your contribution to this world is important. And taking care of your immediate environment, that's a natural thing for most women. You know, and when they come into this field, they do take it personally. And some men will say, oh, women are emotional. But you know what? Architecture is emotional. It's personal. It's our space. It's where we go, whether it's public or civic or you know, residential. And I believe that perspective on design adds so much value. Men are analytical. I'm not saying that women are not. But imagine this beautiful combination between the ideas of men and the ideas of women and the experience of men and the experience of women. So you have this cross-gender dialogue, which is very rich. And I cannot imagine a world where women are not inclusive in decisions and participation, and it would be an extremely boring world, I imagine, very dull. So, and probably wouldn't work very well either, because, you know, 50% of the population and the mothers of the future generations have a say, and they've always had a say. And I think when you say, where are the women in architecture? that should answer your question. However, from a technical point of view and a professional point of view, I'm very happy to say that there are many wonderful aspiring architects in the field, in the Arab world and in the international world. And of course, when you say female architect, the first one that pops to mind is Zaha Hadid, Allah yarhamha. She was an amazing, outstanding figure who trailblazed in the field of architecture, not because her work was feminine, it was different, it was unique, and she was a hard worker. And let's say this, you cannot reach a pinnacle of success to that degree without committing your entire life to it. So architecture is a commitment. Any profession is a commitment, but architecture, it's the profession where you lose sleep, you stay up all night working on your projects, and I should know I've just spent the last 3 weeks sleeping very little. We had a major deadline, so I'm speaking from a constant experience. We're constantly growing and developing and pushing ourselves further and further as architects, as designers, and I'm so happy to be here today to share this experience with you. It's not been flowery experience all the way. There have been huge challenges, as you can imagine, because I started in 1989 when I graduated. So it's a 30-year journey, and I came into the field where it was pretty unusual to find a woman in this area, not just in Saudi Arabia, even everywhere in the world. I mean, I've traveled and visited very famous architectural firms in the United States and Europe, and I found very few women actually working there or in leadership positions. Interestingly enough, there are now a growing number of women who own their own firms. They head their own firms because they have the entrepreneurial spirit and they're willing to take that risk, put themselves out there. And I did that right at the beginning, and I didn't have many role models. And because I was one of the first, so I was pioneering really in Saudi Arabia. And my main role model, I believe, was my mother, and her influence upon me as a young girl growing up, and my father. So I have to mention that I was raised in the UK. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is to put some context in terms of my childhood. And so my parents were very attached to Saudi Arabia and, of course, Islam. So for me, my faith was a major part of my character, and I think a defining detail of who I was to become, the girl that became me. And I'm still developing, I'm still growing, and my faith, I'm still working on it. Everybody is working, I hope, on improving themselves as they go along. So having that faith helped me face many challenges, and believe me, building your own firm over a course of 30 years, you are going to experience a lot of ups and downs. And I'm sure my colleagues here today can vouch for that. So you go, you face head on the challenges. I did, but I was, I think, kind of naive when I graduated from university. I didn't realize, and by the way, I studied interior architecture in King Faisal University here in Saudi Arabia, in Dammam. I'm very proud to say that, by the way, because I received an amazing education. And the education that I had coming from the UK and my ability to recognize myself as a creative person, that happened when I was much younger, because I was very competitive child, and I loved painting and art and doing sports. And I think that was part of my personality that was the driving force to achieve. And that helped me later on, because I needed to have that edge. I needed to be competitive. I needed to be ambitious, because things were so difficult and so challenging. If I wasn't, I think I would have probably given up years ago. The interesting thing is that coming to Saudi Arabia, I mean, I was so madly in love with Saudi. And growing up, you know, I was so excited. Every year I'd ask my parents, okay, when are we going back? And because my dad was studying there, and he'd say, okay, this year, next year. Anyway, finally, I came back, and it was a bit of a shock. Okay, not that I haven't been to Saudi many times before, but at that time, I was living in an environment that was very green and rainy, and you know the British landscape, the English landscape. So coming into a more desert area, an arid area, and at an age where, you know, I was being visually stimulated all the time. And for me, visual stimulation is very important to stimulate the imagination. So I acclimatized quite quickly, and I went to university, and I found a whole bunch of wonderful friends, amazing teachers, and we just went from there. And that's when I realized that, okay, I really do want to become an architect. I was worried in the beginning because I was very artistic growing up, and I thought that's what I wanted to be, an artist. And my father wanted me to be a doctor. So in the end, we made a compromise, and we went for architecture and interior architecture. And basically, this was at first a bit confusing, but then when I got deeper into my studies, I realized this is what I wanted to do. And when I made the commitment to do it, it meant I had to do it really well and outstandingly. And graduating from university, I thought, yalla, I'm going to go now and start working, and it's going to be just like that easy. And it wasn't. I couldn't find anyone to hire me. And they said, what? How can you be in this field? It's not a field for women. Where did you come from? As if I came from Mars or something. I said, no, I graduated from Dammam, you know. Oh, we're teaching this here in Saudi Arabia for women? Yes, you are, and here I am. Sorry, we don't have a job for you. And I was like, okay, what should I do next? I have to start somewhere. So I started working from home, and until I got my first project, and I took it from there, and I built my team very gradually. And you have to understand, this was in 1990. 91, the background of the, you know, the Gulf War. We had all that going on in the background, and on top of that, no AutoCAD. Everything was done manually. So I had a team of, I hired them one after another, a team of draftsmen. God bless them, they were amazing. And by 1995, we realized that we needed to, you know, start introducing computers. But by that time, my office had grown, and we got the computers in, we started training the staff, and before you know it, all my CAD operators, well, previously the draftsmen, all were now fully operational as CAD operators. And the technology just started coming into our business slowly. So I'm very fortunate to be able to tell you the story. It's a long story, but I don't think we have time for it now. The transition between, you know, the days where we drew everything manually and we plotted everything out on a blueprint machine. And I don't know, maybe a lot of you will relate to that, but some of you not, you know. So it was challenging, and you had to have a lot of people to produce type of work that would take, you know, few people today. So technology is amazing. It's enabled us. And you know, and it's enabled us to express ourselves as designers and architects and to reach our client, because most importantly, our client needs to understand what we're doing and visualize and
السلام
not be
عليكم.
shocked. Yes.
مهندسة نادية،
Yeah.
البرزنتيشن ما هو قاعد يتحرك، بس المعلومية هي على الصفحة الأولى.
Oh, okay. Let me start. Let me see what's wrong with that.
لا أنا ما
Sorry.
if you were scrolling or not.
Hmm?
I don't know if you were scrolling down or not على ال other
Can you
side.
see it now? Is it moving now?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. How much time do we have left, by the way? I need to know.
We have about 20 minutes.
Okay, great. Right.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I will start showing you my slides, because talking about visual things, I think that would be the most interesting for you. I can't seem to go to the, wait a minute. Bear with me one minute. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we do. Yep.
I'll come back. Okay, I'm trying to escape into a so that you can see it as a full screen mode. Should I do escape? No? Anyway, sorry. I'm not the world's best techno person. I'm a bit technical challenged because I tend to do everything by hand, and I'm an artist, okay? You know, I leave all this AutoCAD 3D Max to my staff, and but what I want to say to you is what women are really good at. We're talking about women, right? So women, as I said, in architecture, they are very personal touch. What made me, I think, unique in Saudi Arabia at the time was the way I dealt with my clients and my approach. And it's a very personal approach, and our philosophy. This is a very nice presentation, which I've kind of manipulated for today's presentation. It's actually from my MBA profile, but so some of it might look a bit technical. Although what I want to say is that human beings are the center of all architecture, and architecture is the reflection of civilization. So without architecture, what would be left? I mean, centuries to come, how would people know who you are and what you are if you don't leave strong philosophy, strong, evidence of your civilization? It's really important that we build things to last, and we build things that will be sustainable and that reflect us as a people. And it's important to go back to your roots. And I love that about some of our wonderful Arab architects like Rasim Badran, and his determination to be attached to the authentic Arab architecture. And that lifeline, if you imagine a continuation in time, if you break that continuation, we lose something of ourselves. And I think it's really important that we bring that into the culture of how we work and the work that we design. And, it doesn't mean that you have to be designing, Islamic architecture and traditional houses and buildings, and it all has to look like it's, popped up from the past. But I think even if you just think of it in terms of the philosophy of the space and the meaning behind it and the culture behind it, this will give enough gravity to your designs. So basically, I mean, looking at this sketch, this is just one of many sketches, and I start with projects like this. And I don't know how fast this is moving for you. I just briefly tell you about the way I design. I work, from the ground up, and I feel the energy of a space and of a land, and I love sketching. And I feel that when I sketch, it's a very natural process between my feelings, my mind, my theory, everything, and it just flows onto the paper. And when I tried, I've been learning how to do all the other stuff, the AutoCAD and the 3D Max and all this, but I don't feel that very comfortable with it. And I feel there's a barrier between me and my designs. So I'm an advocate for doing things in a traditional manner. This is just quickly, you'll see my flowing lines, and I am very happy when I design like this, okay? Not all our clients want this type of architecture, and this is very me. This reflects me as a artist as well as a designer. There's some of my artworks, okay, so that you understand the way I approach color and form and shape. Color is very important for me. I think we really express ourselves, and flowing lines are very important for me. I think you've read some of my CV. You see I have quite a long list of participation in chair boards and other organizations. And this became really something that I was very attached to, because I felt it was very important for me to participate in the decision making that affected women and men. especially in Saudi Arabia and in the Arab world. Because, to be honest with you, we always talk about women, women this and women that, but we forget that we're talking about a young generation of men and women. When it comes to architecture, until now in Saudi Arabia, architecture is in that grey area. So from a legitimizing point of view, we're under the Saudi Council of Engineers, which is really important. So we're viewed as engineers, but we as architects view ourselves as architects. And this is my identity, right? But in the Council of Engineers, you are viewed as an engineer. And we're still trying to promote the idea, and this is a cultural idea as well, that architecture is a very predominant field, and it is in fact in a leadership position in the inception of any project. But in order to get to that stage, I had to penetrate the man's world of decision making, and I ran for elections many times, and the first one was in 2004 for the Baladia Majlis al-Baladi, and طبعا nothing happened except for it created the dialogue. It brought to attention and to the public that, oh, there are women that are interested to participate, great. And so a decision had to be taken that, okay, in 2009 women would be included. But that didn't happen later, but anyway. I ran for the Council of Engineers in 2006. I won my first seat in the elections on the board, and I ran again in 2009. So I've served 6 years on the board of the Council of Engineers, and my main agenda was about equality. And I don't mean equality for women, I mean equality for Saudis, young graduates and older Saudis in the field, men and women, who are competing in the market for excellent projects and not really getting the opportunity because they're competing with all the foreign firms. And I say this because it was a struggle. It was a 20-year struggle. I have got there now, alhamdulillah. MBA is up there. We're pre-qualified on some of the best projects and Vision 2030 projects, but we fought for that position. And it didn't come easy to be recognized as a local firm that has the ability to compete with the largest firms in the world. This is a huge compliment and responsibility to MBA, and you know, I'm so proud that I managed to achieve that status after 30 years. It's a journey, and I don't want anyone to give up. If any of you young people out there watching this are thinking, oh, we never get a chance at a project, it's not true. You just keep going at it. My interest spread to UN Habitat. I sit on the board of something called AGI, which is an advisory board for gender issues, and it affects urban growth and how urban design can be inclusive for men and women and children and families. These are some of the awards. Obviously, I felt it was very important to participate on many levels and be present in many conferences. Oh, okay, I decided to show you some of the pictures from our projects because I thought it's important for you to connect with what we actually do instead of all our projects, which you will see very quickly in a minute. You can see here, this is with some of my team, and the senior guy leading this project, Mohandas Ahsan, and we were, this is just one of our projects, it was a big one, and we were very active on this site. We were designing and we were supervising all the, the detail aspects. I'm here with some of these wonderful young ladies from different universities who have achieved excellence in their studies and their graduation, and these ladies in the middle won a competition for the Urban Saudi City Changers program. This gentleman is an intern from Spain. We have, by the way, an internship program which is very intense in our office, and we have interns from all over the world. This is my team. We make sure that the team are together always and happy, and it's a family. MBA is a family. We're not a cold-hearted firm where it's all about who can get to the top and on the shoulders of someone else. We don't accept that. That's not part of our culture. And you can see here I'm with Leila. She's the beautiful baby of one of my staff, Muhandisa Sara, and she's amazing. And she literally spent the first 3 years of her life in the office. We have a creche. And these are my children. Well, actually, Yusuf is our technical director in the middle, and my youngest, Omar. So you can see, being a mother, being a responsible person, being a leader of a firm, a leader in society, a role model. I have the honor of and the privilege to be doing these things, but at the same time, it's a huge responsibility. Here you can see wonderful Rasim Badran here. He visited us at our office, and the girls were, and the guys, they were also pleased. This was a few years ago, 4 years ago, I think. And now, probably the next important thing after being an architect who is rooted to one's community, I think, is the work that we do, actually. And you will see, I'll show you briefly, because how much time do we have left? Do we have 10 minutes left?
We do, but you can extend the time, Mohammed Nadia, because we're going to have a long break afterwards.
Okay.
You can take as much time as you need. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we'll come back to this then. All right, so on this page you can see various different shots of, this is one project, by the way, and this is a project for a family, and it's a family compound or complex. What's interesting in this is that and these are quite common projects today. A lot of our clients now come to us with these family projects where you do the main house and the son's houses and the daughter's houses, and you have a recreation facility and you have a diwaniya. And sometimes the client wants very contemporary. Sometimes the client wants a very classical or traditional type of architecture. In MBA, we don't believe on forcing a specific aesthetic style on our clients. We think it's egoistic. Although I respect people that have their own, their own style, and they feel that that's the only style they're going to work in. That's the only language and aesthetic. For us, our language is the philosophy behind the way we work. It's our attitude, it's our approach, it's our relationship with our clients. Space planning is a very vital part of what we do, making sure that our buildings work. They work from the inside, they work from the outside, and how they're connected to the landscape is so important for us. So when a client comes to me and says, I want, classical French architecture, I wouldn't poo-poo him out of the office and say, oh, no, sorry. I would say, okay, and I would try to understand why and get into it. It's a long relationship, right? And you have to understand your client. It's very personal. You get into their nitty-gritty, and then you start to have this dialogue where you explain to them that, okay, we can do that, but we can do it like this, so it doesn't look weird and it doesn't look odd and out of place on the landscape. So we try to manage our clients' expectations and at the same time their vision. But we respect their vision very much too. And especially some clients are very involved in the process, and some are quite happy to let you get on with it, I think in this particular project, you can see from the Diwaniya, we had a more traditional, like contemporary traditional approach on that. And that happens sometimes where you have a combination in the project of different styles. Here this was a competition. It's a scary looking building, I think. This is for a cultural / cinema plex entertainment zone for a very important client. And they loved the project. We basically won the competition unofficially, but the project went on hold. It was a kind of a dream project, I think. And the client decided, well, I can use this land for something more, economically sound. Maybe the feasibility studies that came back were not very sound. So what I'm trying to say is, okay, I mean, sometimes you work on something and it doesn't see the light of earth, does it? It's just the light of day, because in the end, it's a client comes to you with an aspiration, you work hard on it, and maybe 40% of your projects don't actually, or 30% don't get constructed. I heard one architect telling me that, you know, you're lucky if you get 50% of your work out there. So yes, that can be frustrating as an architect, and in your career, to have so many projects go on hold halfway through, or you know, for various reasons get cancelled. But residential projects, mainly the private ones, mainly get built, which is the good news. So, and you know, you when you design something for a family that have come to you and they're always in a hurry, so you have to design very quickly, which is not the best thing, to be honest with you. I think everything should take its time. But it's very common for a client to say, "Oh no, please, you know, we don't have much time, and we're always in a hurry." But in the end, things take their time during the process. So you know, the client has to respect that, and it's a tough message sometimes, especially when money is involved. The site is active, contractors are screaming, they want drawings. If the clients come to you late into the project and said, you know what, we have this project, it's under construction, can you come and do the, you know, interior design, or can you manage the coordination between the interior and the exterior, and can you change the exterior, you know? And you're looking at this and you're thinking, okay, I can do it. But we want it yesterday. Okay, you want it yesterday. So we sit there, and Yusuf, my technical director and wonderful son, he's the brains behind all the project management and the scheduling, and you know, so we work really hard to try and stick to our schedules. But I'm not going to lie, we don't always. And I think a lot of projects in architecture don't. They're delivered above what do they say? Above budget and and quite late. La, alhamdulillah, we're not too above budget. Most times we stick to the budget, and we try to stick to the deadline as well, if it's reasonable deadline. Here you can see, I just want to go back to this. This is a project that was built, well, under construction when we joined, and they asked us to do to refine all the exterior work, because it was different to this, and the client wanted this kind of vision. This was another project where we designed from scratch the architecture, and this was in Iwan, out in the garden area. We went through a period of doing a lot of this, you know, more traditional Andalusian, Arabian type of architecture, and I love it. It's actually very close to my heart, and I feel that I express myself a lot in this area, inside and out, yani, as a building, and from an interior point of view too. But we have to say it's not decoration, and this is something really important, because some architects think, oh, you know, it's decoration. Period architecture, you can just stick it on in white hat and done. It's not. You know, if you're going to design a residence that is from the, you know, from a certain specific period in the Islamic civilization, or a particular tradition, you have to be committed to studying the authentic style and the philosophies behind the spaces, the public space, the semi-private space, private space, you know, and understanding, merging that with the client's needs. So residential architectural design is probably one of the most difficult to do, because it's never the same, and each client is different, and each client is attached to their work, to their project. This particular project is interesting. It's a client, he's an amazing client. He wanted to build 4 buildings. These are apartment buildings next to each other, one next to each other, okay? And each one reflecting a different part of Saudi Arabia. Najd or Hijaz, and there was one from South Saudi Arabia, and another one from the Eastern region. We didn't get to do the other 2 because land. We wanted them to be next to each other in a row. These were actually built there in Hayy al-Raid in Riyadh, and we got a lot of compliments on that. They are luxury apartment buildings. Each one has 7 apartments in it. Yeah, here you can see it at night. In fact, it is the most expensive luxury apartment building in Riyadh, as far as I know. And he was able to get those kind of fees for his for the apartment space, the rents, due to the fact that the buildings were so well laid out. The apartments were, luxurious, very spacious, all the services. So the architect can add so much value to the real estate project, and actually not just add value, can make it a success or a failure. So it's a huge responsibility to get it right. These are other projects that you see. Residential. This is a school, another school. I love education as a subject, and I feel very passionately about it. And one of the first things that I tried to get involved with when I started, moving up in my career was to design schools. And I went to the Ministry of Education and I said, okay, I want to design a school. I can do this. And they said, great, what can you do? And I did a presentation for them and they loved it. And they asked me to speak at an important conference about education and the importance of the education environment, how it, in fact, reflects on the students, right? So I was very happy and I thought, okay, I'm going to get my first school. And then we were disappointed to find that there was different planning what do you say? Well, it wasn't the right time. Let's put it this way. There was some changes in the education ministry strategy and the schools, the type of buildings that they were going to build. So we wanted to get involved with the model schools, and hopefully maybe down the line when, because there is like 4,000 schools that need to be built in Saudi Arabia. So there is a huge gap there, and hopefully we'll be part of the next level going forward, building those innovative schools. This is an example of a mixed-use community. It's a resort-style living. Many projects were studied like this during the 90s and 2000s. That was one that we studied for a client. This is landscape design as well as the architectural layout. It's another family compound. You can see how it developed into the architecture. The client wanted this kind of Californian, Spanish / classic type of architecture for the main villa. But the sons wanted something very contemporary. So we had to kind of marry them to each other. Was a bit challenging. I'll show you briefly some of our interiors as well, because you need to see what's going on inside as well as what we do on the outside. It's important that you see how our approach to design, it flows through. And we're very happy with projects where we design the architecture and design the interior. And these projects we feel are the most successful because we design outwards. I personally design from the inside out. I design based around my client, and I experience the spaces as I go through them. My team is amazing. We have various different teams: the architectural team, the engineering coordination team. We have the interior design team, the furniture team. And, with time, we have accumulated so much knowledge and experience and contacts within the industry in terms of materials, construction materials, finishes materials, the furnishings, the accessories. These are all important when you're designing a project. You need to know how things work, how they fit together, where you can get them. And our clients in Saudi Arabia are very, very discerning clients. They know what they want. They understand quality. The clients that come to us are, they've already done homework, and they're not easy clients. They're quite challenging because they're probably, by the time they get to us, they're building their palace, okay, or their super duper building that they've, for their new real estate venture. So it's not a first project for them. So they've been around the block and they know how things work. And so they can be very detail oriented. The most challenging projects are the family ones, because then you have to deal with every member of the family, and every member of the family has a different opinion, and things get changed around sometimes, and you go through revisions after revisions. One thing I have to tell you, I love my clients. And even though sometimes they frustrate me, I always bend over backwards, and my team does, to make sure that we go that one step, 10 step, 100 steps further to make them happy, no matter how many revisions we have to do, which is actually dangerous because it slows you down. It can make a project less feasible. But at the end of the day, I cannot have an unhappy client. And to me, especially when it comes to residential space, this is where they're going to live. They're going to look at these rooms every day, experience the space every day. And if I don't do a good job, if my team doesn't deliver, my client is not going to be happy, and they're going to remember that every time they go into a space. And oh my God, Nadia, what were you thinking? So we need to make sure it all works and the client is super duper happy.
Most definitely.
Huh?
Mohamed Nadia, thank you so much. We're going to have to move to the questions
Okay.
right now. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Okay.
And the questions that we've gotten, first one states that female Saudi students usually face people saying architecture isn't suitable for them due to the stress levels. At some points, hearing these comments could be a bit depressing and damaging. What is the best way to deal with that type of mindset? And what is the most useful advice that you would give to those students, being females in Saudi?
First of all, I say don't listen to negative statements, okay? I heard a lot of those as when I started my career, and for the first 10 years, to be honest with you. And that's why I ran for elections. And I have to tell you, by the way, my business grew and we were almost... and I almost lost my business and I had to rebuild it again. So failure is only failure when you give up, okay? These young ladies, I know what they're talking about. They if they're not fortunate enough to be surrounded by people who are encouraging them, it can be very disheartening. But right now, they're in a better situation than I was 30 years ago because there are so many wonderful role models ahead of them. The general public is accepting women in the field now. Culture is more accepting. And when I started, people didn't understand why I was even practicing. I had to do a lot of convincing and educating. So the young ladies that face these challenges today, they have to be very confident and resolute and have faith in themselves. The most important thing, look, for someone who's just graduating into the field, first of all, make sure that your knowledge get as much knowledge as you can. Go to a good firm for your internship. Make sure that you get experience. Don't expect to be a project leader from day one. Nobody should be. There is a point where you need 5 years of working in the field before you can say that you are capable. And that's when the Saudi Council of Engineers will give you a license so that you can open your own business. It takes 5 years. And that process is very important. You need to be committed to it. You can't be half-hearted about architecture or interior design or any of these fields. You need to be completely committed. It's a round-the-clock activity, and the people around you need to understand that. So have confidence and be professional. Be professional. And I say this with like lines under it, because people ask me, how do you deal with your clients? How do you deal with men? How do you deal with... Look, if you respect yourself and you are professional, and by professional I mean you know where to draw the line, you know how to specific language, there's a specific code of how you present yourself, and you are very academic in your approach, your clients and the people that you come into contact with will respect you. You have to have boundaries, okay? And those boundaries have to be built upon several things. And one of them is your faith, obviously. The other one is that your professional persona. Even if you're not there yet, what did they say? Fake it till you make it. You have to convince your clients or your colleagues that you know what you're doing. And then you go home and you do all your homework. And that's really important. So I hope I answered the question.
Well, you definitely did, once, Nadia. Moving to this next question. How do you control the client budget for the design requested?
Okay, in the beginning, trying to get the client to admit to their budget in the first place is a bit of a challenge, because especially the first 20 years of my career, clients wouldn't tell you. It was almost like if they tell you how much they're going to spend, you're going to double it. And no, you study it and tell us how much this is going to cost. And they would give me sometimes the impression that they have an open budget. And then I would discover, 8 months later that we've designed something that is over budget. And I said, well, why didn't you say that your budget was X, Well, we didn't want to hamper you. And then we go to value engineering and we have to redesign things. And it's really, really inconvenient and time wasting. So the client should know how much they want to spend. And once they've given you that figure, what we do, if they have no idea, we've developed a program now in the office where we can calculate based on a specific aesthetic, based on a specific quality of materials, labor. I'm taking into consideration now that things are increasing in price, and with the advent of the 15% VAT, it made a huge difference to the price of construction, which could be millions. I mean, if a project is a 40 million real project and you add 15% on top of that, it's gone off budget big time. And this actually happened to us just a few months back, and our client was shocked because he'd had a budget and suddenly now he's thinking, how am I going to build this? And we're thinking, okay, we've got to go back and restudy some of this space so that we can bring back the cost of the construction to where it should have been. It's tough. It's not easy to manage a budget, especially when it comes to things like this, luxurious finishes. And, not every client, some clients have aspirations beyond their budgets, and you really need to recognize that in the beginning in a very, diplomatic way. And like I said, manage their expectations and try and steer them towards, towards solutions that fit their budgets more. I know everything I'm showing you now is top super luxurious and costs a fortune to build. And you're probably thinking, oh, she only designs things for very wealthy people. But that's not the case. We do actually do projects which are less ornate. And because all of this stuff, it costs a fortune, doesn't it? I mean, every line you add to your drawing in CAD, every line you add to your drawing adds more design, which actually means more money. And so you have to be very aware of that when you are working. Maybe in residential kind of luxury end of the market, you have a little bit more flexibility. But now the money is being spent more on systems, smart systems, the electrics, the plumbing, these things. People are now more aware that they need to invest in the infrastructure of their projects. And this is something that we really recommend to our clients. Don't think about the decoration. Think about how long this building is going to last. Is it economical to run? And this is really important, thinking about going future with the lack of resources and the expense of electricity, water, everything. So I think the architectural community as a whole should come together to really find the solutions for this kind of, situation that's going to affect a lot of clients in the future, not just in the residential sphere, but also commercially, all kinds of projects, government projects. So we can see now there's a major shift in the way that people in general are thinking. And with Vision 2030 projects, we're seeing that there are more considerations. And it's about quality, it's about longevity, sustainability, and the most wonderful part of that is the inclusion of Saudis, Saudi designers, men and women, making decisions at a high level in these wonderful new Vision 2030 projects. And I think we, as Arabs, as Saudis, living in our own country, we come from this region. We understand our region, the culture of it, and the environment, and what we have to deal with, you know. So when there is a mixed team, and when I don't want to sound like I just pro Saudi. No, it has to be a melting pot of cultures and knowledge. And for me, the most important thing is on that team who will guide this project would be different points of view from different parts of the world, and having that melting pot of ideas from different cultures and different backgrounds and experiences is vital to any project, especially these big projects, you know, because there's a lot of expertise that can come from different firms, and some of them global firms, but the local firms bring a different kind of expertise, and that's why I think, you know, and we're here to stay, so we're not hit and run. You know, it's important to us that our projects are viable, they're sustainable, and that they're not, you know, going to disappear and become useless and expire, you know, with an expiration date. And the architecture that perishes very quickly, to me, is very sad, because a lot of money is wasted and effort and time. And I think the responsibility for this for me is a major message. It's a very big responsibility to people who are in decision-making positions that influence the future of our landscape, the future of our cities. They need to consider making the right decisions for the right reasons, and not just, you know, for ego or aesthetic, or, you know, because if you don't, the future is questionable. Right now, we are in a very sensitive situation when it comes to the Earth's resources, and we need the best minds at work, men and women. We need to see men and women hand in hand, you know, the most smart of them, working with each other to develop our wonderful nation and all the Arab world. You know, we have some of the best creative talent and expertise is to be found in our region, and all we need is the platform to express that, and the faith of our big decision makers behind us and their resources, and we can do the most amazing things. And really, I think that would be my closing message. Unless there's somebody else who has a question, I'll be happy to take as many questions as you like.
I believe that marks the end of our questions. Mhandisa Nadia, thank you so much for your time and effort in preparing this lecture for us tonight.